Hello, and welcome to this edition of Spirit RX Podcast, Ancient Wisdom, Modern Healing. I'm Dr. Luke, quantum chiropractor, and this is Dr. Michael, naturopath extraordinaire. We love to integrate best practices of modern medicine with ancient remedies and modalities. In this podcast, we'll explore contemporary health and wellness topics with a blend of wisdom, humor, and practical tips for the everyday person. If you want to learn more about stories, our businesses, how to connect with us, please click on the video link below. Let's jump in today, Doc. Our topic for today is mindfulness and meditation and how that links into health and wellness.
I guess to get started, what I want to really dive into is what is mindfulness? It's not the mind over matter idea where
Right.
if you don't mind, it doesn't matter kind of thought process. I hear that joke way too frequently. But I think mindfulness and meditation, my interpretation of what they are, is putting your mind into a state of calm. And there are various degrees of calm that you can be in.
Sure.
And those are usually measured as a certain wavelength. So you could call it a theta state or
Right.
however you're going to describe it. But the goal is to put yourself into a calm state of mind. And at the same time, what I refer to as a parasympathetic state. So this is the medical side that I look at. I want to be in a parasympathetic state. So what does that mean? Parasympathetic is the opposite of a sympathetic state, which means that you're in a calm state. Your nervous system is in rest and digest versus the idea of the sympathetic state, which
Right.
is basically a high stress state.
I refer to it sometimes as the gas pedal and the brake.
Yeah.
So we're going to pump the brakes on all the hectic craziness of the moment. When I think about mindfulness, if I really boil it down to something simple, it's stopping and being present in this moment right now. Yes, I've got a lot of to-do lists, things that I want to get done this hour, next hour, tomorrow that my brain is thinking about. Yes, I'm also contemplating some things that happened to me recently and how that all interacts. I'm also being aware of what's going on in my surroundings. Is it safe? Is it not safe? And so all of that can make for a lot of clutter and monkey mind, so to speak. And that's part of our human existence. And I think, especially, we live in a world today that everything is so fast. I tell this to my kids. If I pull out a classic movie from 1950s, 1960s, and we sit down to watch it together, they are bored out of their mind. There's two camera angles, a lot of slow moving dialogue, character, plot development, and very little action compared to the modern movie. Like you watch a new Star Wars movie, for example, every 3 seconds, the camera angle changes. There's an explosion, a flash of lights. The nervous system is stimulated constantly. And so then mindfulness is okay, what I need to just be calm and at peace in this moment. Just take a moment, take a little break, and not be attending to all those other things that my mind is going to attend to.
Hmm. So that's interesting to me. I think one of the things you mentioned and what you were speaking about there was the monkey mind.
Right.
And I think that so mindfulness and meditation has definitely some religious implications for people.
They do, but they don't have to,
No,
right?
they
They,
don't.
they could be
Exactly.
separate from
That's
that.
exactly right.
But you're right. We use a term like prayer and meditation. You can almost, not totally, but sometimes you can exchange those two terms.
Yeah.
But mindfulness is its own branch, its own movement, so to speak, which is, can you be still and can you be in the now? Can you be present? So presence is a word that would be used to describe mindfulness. And it's like being mindful of, I need to take a few moments each day to do that. It's like setting a habit or a routine.
Yeah, it's ironic a little bit, the term mindful, right?
Right.
Because really, you don't want your mind to necessarily be full with just a bunch of clutter.
Exactly.
And so being mindful is actually being there, present in the moment, and focusing on maybe one thing. That's to me, that's how I learned meditation. I don't know if this is true for your background in it. I learned to meditate is not to empty the mind, though sometimes that's a goal that people work towards. But the idea is to focus on one thing so that you drive out all of the other thoughts. And so the idea is you can focus on counting to 10, right? Or some focus that keeps you
Yeah,
present
a
and
focal
in
point.
that
Yes.
deep parasympathetic here in this mindful present state. And so I feel like I'm talking esoterically when I say
Right,
this,
right.
but it's a powerful tool.
It absolutely is. As you're telling me that, I'm recalling when I was in medical school, there was one instructor that in the middle of class, her phone would make this gong noise. And it was this very, whoa, what was that? Because you don't hear a gong when you're in a classroom setting. And then she would say, oh, that's just my reminder about mindfulness. Just disregard it. And
Don't
then keep
mind
going,
that.
don't mind that. And it became like a joke. Like almost every other day, that thing was going off in the middle of class. And it's either stop class and do it or change your reminder on your phone. But in a way, it's not a bad practice to set something like that up in your phone.
Yeah.
But it needs to be at a time when you really can take advantage of it, not in the middle of a workflow where you're engaging with others.
So that's actually, let's talk a little bit about that. I think this is an important thing. How can we actually apply the concept of mindfulness and maybe some steps, your ideas
Yeah.
around how to perform or meditate? Like just some general concepts around that.
I think in a way we need to still pull apart mindfulness and meditation a little bit.
Why we do it, maybe?
How they're the same, how they're different.
Okay.
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 So I'm saying, I guess I'm suggesting that mindfulness isn't necessarily meditation.
Okay.
It could just be, I'm going to take a moment, 30 seconds, and I'm going to
Hmm.
breathe slowly and I'm going to pay attention to my internal state. What's going on in my body? What are the sensations inside? I think about it a lot like pollution, right? So we all know what pollution is out in the environment, and of course, we're all against it largely. But what about internal pollution? What are some thoughts and emotions that I might be having inside of me that are not helping me, that are actually doing some harm? There's pollution, right? Now, how might that show up? I should be then paying attention to, first of all, the words that come out of my mouth, because if I'm complaining, for example, or being critical of something, then that's an expression of maybe some inner pollution that's spilling out. And
Hmm.
in essence, will affect whatever's outside of it. But mindfulness can be simply, how am I doing right now? What is my inner state like? And also paying attention to the body. What are my hands feeling like? What does my torso feel like? What's going on in my legs, my feet, my stomach, so just paying attention to the inner state, because we don't do that a lot during the course of the day.
No, we don't.
So to me, mindfulness is, it's just about stopping and being present. And when we do, that helps us. Now,
I think
that
I
can
get
it
what
can
you're
take a
saying.
lot, it can take a lot of formats, right? So that's just, we talk about mindfulness, and the bookstores are full of books on mindfulness strategies.
Hmm.
But I would say it all really comes back to being present. Now, I know when I hear you talk about, for instance, when you first meet with a new patient, you're really present with the person. You block out a lot of time to really connect and listen and fully engage and be with that person. In traditional Western medicine, time is short. And so they're trying to cram a lot into a small space, and there's things that are going to get missed. And
Yeah.
so being present, then I hear you speak about it all the time, how you're going to just take whatever time it needs to take to get the full picture of what's going on. That's being present. In the work that I do, I'm making light touches on people, but I need to really be present with that person to be able to get the information coming to me, but also then to deliver the exact right contact that I need to do so that can have a change.
Hmm.
So presence is like a huge thing that the more we practice it, and again, takes many formats.
So you got me.
Yeah,
Okay, so this got you got me
we're
thinking now.
diving in,
Yeah,
aren't we?
so this is interesting.
Okay.
So I think to define that
Okay.
in my thinking, I would say this is the difference between brain, body, and mind. So the mind is something more like part of who we are, our personality, how we see the world, like this mind aspect of who we are, our thoughts versus the actual physical structure of our brain. And the reason I bring this up is because to me, you can apply that to the concept of mindfulness. Because what happens when we don't pay attention to the present moment is our mind goes all over the place. And you have to bring your mind back to the moment now, here, to basically become present. And I think that's a real interesting concept about who we are as human beings.
Yes.
And I don't want to go too far off on this. I think of ourselves as mental time travelers is what we are
Yes.
all the time. We're physically here right now. And yeah, I could be thinking about the oven.
Yes.
Did I leave the oven on back home? My wife, when is
Yes.
she going to get here? What time am I meeting with her? If I'm doing that, I'm not here. I'm not even paying attention to what my body feels like right now.
Right.
And I think that's what you're getting at,
It
right? At the
is. And
core.
so the concept of time, right? Because presence is just now. There's no concern for past, there's no concern for future if you're truly present. Now, that's a concept that's easy to say and harder to do. So let's just say you and I are having a conversation, and when you are speaking, my part is to listen. And then when I speak, your part is to listen.
Yeah.
But what happens a lot, especially for me, is that you say a few things, and then my mind says, "Oh, yeah. And now I know what I'm going to say next." And so I'm waiting for
Sure.
you to
Yeah.
finish, and I'm not even
Yeah.
paying attention because I'm in my own head already formulating what I'm going to respond to. And then I miss the second half of what you said.
Yeah.
So that's the more present I am in the communication, then the better I would listen. And I would wait till you stop. And I need to work on this, but I would wait till you stop and I might even bounce it back. I think I'm hearing you say this. Is that correct? And then you can say, yes, exactly, or a little more of this. Oh, great. So then that's being more present just in communication.
I love that.
So
Yeah.
I think a lot of relationships have trouble with that. Get home at night and spend a long day, and the mind's you wanting to focus on something else. And yes, we're physically present, but not maybe present in the moment with the other person.
Hmm. Does it take a lot of willpower to be present? Or is it actually easier to be present than it is to focus on the past or the future or whatever you're
Yes,
focusing on
yes. I
outside?
think it takes some intentionality
Hmm.
and some effort
Hmm.
because our brain will just quickly run down these other rabbit holes. And part of it is just distracting us from paying attention to our inner state. It's just so easy for that to happen. And it's also gets supported a lot in the culture.
I agree. How much do you think our world, our culture would change if we just practiced mindfulness?
Oh,
If we just
huge.
taught that and just did that? It's just an
Just
interesting
top
thought.
of my
Like,
head, I would say that the threat of war would be greatly reduced. I think it would go down because part of it then too, if you're going to be present with someone else as well as yourself, you're going to have a certain level of empathy and drop the judgmentalness and the criticalness
yeah,
because there's not room for that if we're truly present because then we're one. And then time, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that you mistreated me last week. Okay, that was last week. If I'm really present with you right now, the trespasses of last week don't matter. Okay. And likewise, I'm not worried about what might be coming down the pike.
yeah.
And so I'm just in the moment. So mindfulness, again, it can take a lot of different forms, but presence, especially for me and the work that I do, because when I'm meeting with a patient, it's a two-way thing, right? Like I want to read the body, get the information that's coming to me. I have to listen and focus on
Yeah.
them. But at the same time, there's also, I have strategies and a mini map of where I want the session to go. Here's what we're going to work on today. Here's where we're going to go. Based on what's in front of me, this is what we're going to do. But then I also have to be ready to drop that and follow. It's like a dance, right? There's two
Hmm.
people dancing, and you both have to do it together. So it's that communication piece again. And if
Yeah.
I'm only in my mind and I'm not being mindful, then I'm going to not be paying attention to the other person and I'm going to
Right.
miss some things.
Yeah. And I think we all do that. Like for sure, I definitely do. I miss things. Even when I'm present, there's these moments where a thought will come into my mind because of what someone says. I'm here, I'm listening, and that just explodes into a million other thoughts, a string of consciousness very quickly.
Yes,
And I think that's a talent and a beauty about what you do is that you have to be there for them and totally providing for them. Now, you've mentioned to me you get streams of consciousness that
right.
kind of come in your. Now, would you say that's part of that mindfulness? That's what you're
Absolutely.
doing? Yeah.
Absolutely. It's because I would say that there is a field, the
Mhm.
field, sometimes people will say, but there is a field of collective consciousness around all of us. And tapping into that, there's so much information. We'll hear these stories about, oh, this great inventor came up with this invention. And oh, by the way, someone else on the other side of the world was working on the same thing at the same time, and it's a race to which one gets the patent in
Yeah.
first or becomes popular. But this happens over and over again, that it's now in the consciousness that this problem is being worked on, and several people are tapping into that same field of consciousness, and the results are coming, they're available at that time to be discovered.
Yeah.
So it's just the same thing on
That's so real.
such a smaller level. Let's dive into meditation. And I don't think either of us are here to say that, hey, we're experts in this field. We just recognize that as physicians, that we're here to help people to be better in their own health. And these are important concepts that are valuable when it comes to health. So let's talk about meditation. Like what comes to your mind when someone says, I'm going to meditate or I want to meditate, or how do you do that? What would you say?
So I think this conversation has actually helped expand my thoughts
Okay.
around the differentiation between mindfulness and meditation.
Okay.
And based on what you were telling me, I have a better understanding of presence being related to that mindfulness, that connection to presence. I think you have to be mindful to enter a state of meditation. But meditation, I think, is
Yes.
a deeper state. There
Correct.
seems to be more behind that. And I think that comes from very deep breathing, like going into that deep parasympathetic state. And then maybe what I was talking about in terms of using
Absolutely.
one thought to drive out others. And I don't
Yes.
know even how to describe that state. Like I know that it can be measured. It can be that
Right. And
state of
you
mind.
referred earlier to the brain waves, and
Yeah.
I think you're exactly right on that. So beta is like our alert state, and then and you can correct me on this too, Doc. But like theta is that's more the state you might be in early in life as a baby, or if you were under hypnosis, but that's a pretty deep state.
Hmm.
And then we also have different brain waves for when we're in a deep sleep, and there's different
Yeah.
levels even
Delta,
into sleep,
like the
delta
delta state. Yeah.
especially. So we want to get out of beta, out of that being hyper alert, hyper vigilant, because our brain, when I think about the brain, it's doing three big things. The first thing is it's on guard for us. It's detecting, is it safe or is it dangerous? The second thing it's doing is it's taking in data and giving some meaning to it.
Hmm.
So what does this mean that this thing is coming at me really fast? Then the third thing is that it's going to make predictions. Okay, this ball is getting bigger as it's coming towards me. It's probably going to hit me and hurt me. Maybe I should move. So then I'm going to take some action based upon that prediction. Now, my predictions might be wrong, And if we get too much in that sympathetic state, we can start to make so many predictions that are just so wrong.
Yeah.
But it's because of the fear that is inherent
Fight or
in that.
flight.
So it's about survival. That's a survival thing that's there to help us, but it can definitely get out of control. Yeah, meditation then, I think about classically there's going to be like three things again as you're being mindful in the moment and as you're going to slow yourself down, drop out of that alert or beta. The three kind of key areas that people might focus on are going to be either the breath or a mantra or like a visual aid. So, for instance, I know when my wife was going through birthing classes, and it's like breathing can really help you.
Same thing.
That's some crazy stuff, especially the first time. And there needs to be some techniques, and it can definitely make the delivery go so much better if some of that is practiced beforehand and actually then implemented in the heat of the battle.
Yeah,
Sometimes it goes out the window, but and then there starts to be all kinds of
definitely goes out the window.
stuff shoved towards the partner that's in the room. But
Right.
yeah, and different religions or faith groups might have a focus be on one or even something else related to this. Mantras, like a rosary. Like rosary, the little different beads correlate to different prayers. And so then there's just a certain rhythm that this can all drop into. And many faiths of the world have those kinds of things. What I find interesting is that most of them also will suggest or encourage a breath pattern that in essence is going to cycle out about 4 seconds on the inhale and 4 seconds on the exhale,
Mm.
give or take. It might be four and a half, but there's been a lot of study on this. In the work that I do, breath is huge. We don't pay attention to breath in the West as much as the ancient world did, and but we're getting to it. And there is so much power in the breath. Anecdotally, I am convinced that breath is a mode of communication. Just like in our nervous system, we might have electrical communication, chemical communication. Breath is a communicator. It absolutely is. And it's what helps the mind body, or I might say body mind, to make the connection too.
Hmm.
So this is like some really powerful stuff. And so breath work is a huge thing. And
You can
I
do a lot
encourage
with breath
everyone
work.
to get involved with that.
I
You
agree.
can totally make changes to the energy state in your body based on that.
It's interesting. There's a lot of different techniques of breath work. There's breath work that can heat the body.
Yes.
There's breath work that your goal is to basically circulate air and bring blood flow to both sides of the brain. There's so many amazing, I think, breathing techniques that have such powerful
Yes, absolutely.
effects on our bodies.
And I utilize a breath work that's called somatorespiratory integration, SRI. It was put together by Donald Epstein, a chiropractor. Now, what I like about it, what I think is so cool, is that there's 12 different breathing stages or breath stages that follow the arc of healing. So, in other words, if I'm in a deep state of pain, like childbirth is an example, but if I'm having pain, my breathing is very different than if I'm having an ecstatic moment, a very, a spiritual moment, my breath is totally different. And so, by then following that arc of healing, we can assess where are you today? And okay, then let's do this breath pattern. And it's not to erase the state that you're in, but it's to help you to move in and through that state more effectively, more efficiently. So I love it. It's the arc of healing, but there's lots and lots of breath work, and I'm not saying one's better than another,
No, this is really interesting.
but it's just so powerful. And then people can use that in their daily practice. I'll do that in the morning. It'll take about 3 minutes, and it can totally, like for me, I want to be high energy state, boom, right before the first person walks in the door, because my energy state is going to have a direct impact on the person coming in because I view it that I am not the healer. I'm there just to bring energy and bring potentiality, bring awareness so that they can say, oh, yeah, I can match that. I can be healed.
Mhm.
So I need to be as healthy as I can be. I need to be as high energy state as I can be. I need to be as mindful and present as I can be. And this is a lifelong journey,
That's so
totally a
true.
lifelong
Yeah,
journey.
I agree with you. I know it is for me. I definitely recognize what you're saying there. One of the things that came to my mind as you were discussing this is, and I think this is important to recognize too, is that our brain, the way that it functions, generally speaking, there are different areas of our brain that have different functions. And meditation definitely calms the mind and puts our brain, different areas of our brain into different states. And
Absolutely.
so I think this is important to recognize is that every area of your brain can be correlated and correlated, not directly attributed
Right?
to different things that we do in our life and different activities. Like certain areas of our brain can actually make us better at sports, make us more active, and have better neuromuscular like feedback.
Right?
And then there are areas of our brain that are more where consciousness seems to be a little more focused, where we think through a problem and think logically about it, or we think emotionally about it. And each of those lobes, the reason I'm even bringing this up is I want to just express this concept of different brain waves at different points of the brain. And that meditation has a way of harmonizing the different points. In other words, a lot of the different portions of our brain can communicate better when we are in a deep meditative state.
Yes.
And every one of those areas can have different wavelengths. And that's what we call our alpha, beta,
Yes.
theta, delta. We go through each of those. And every one of those states that we go into has benefit, has purpose for us in different areas
Absolutely.
of our brain. So we
Absolutely.
don't want to say you want to be in just one state all the time. But I think that from a meditative standpoint, utilizing that relaxed, calm, going into that theta state, even an alpha like focused relaxation or a beta kind of state, whatever state you go into needs to fit your purpose behind what you're doing. So if you're going to sleep, you want to be shifting into a delta state.
Yeah.
And there's certain meditative techniques that get you there. And so I guess that's where I wanted to focus is say every technique has a purpose
Yes.
and can put you into a certain meditative state that has a purpose behind it too, both physiologically and I think energetically and spiritually.
Yes. I think we meaning in medicine here
Hmm.
in the West, we've learned a lot about the brain in the last 40, 50 years. And we've recently been learning a lot about the gut and how
Mm,
powerful that
I'm so glad you
intelligence
brought this
is.
up.
And then I would also say the heart.
Yeah.
The heart is so amazing. Like there was a study in 1991, and they talked about the neural network inside the heart and how you can harmonize the brain and the heart together. And that creates a shift in focus, in breath, and feeling. And the research even said that 3 minutes of that connected, integrated state creates 6 hours worth of change.
What?
6 hours worth of change. So connecting the heart or the body to the mind and not trying to be separate, not to separate those things out. So in the West, we think about, oh, you have some problems mental, you go see this professional. You have some problems with your gut, you go see that professional. You have some spiritual problems, you go see that professional.
That's how I think,
Your
unfortunately,
heart's
a lot of
giving you a
ways.
problem, go to that professional.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that as long as we're also saying, how does this whole fit together? And so
Exactly.
that's where maybe in the East they've been ahead of us, is that
For
they
sure.
they look at the whole first. We think about the whole maybe as an afterthought. So
So
I
true.
think that's part of the integration. So globalization, in my mind, person could say, "Oh, we've lost these jobs or we've gained this," but something that has been gained, in my opinion, is that the medicines of the East and the West and those philosophies are starting to blend together in such new and powerful ways. So this is so powerful.
That actually makes me think, okay, so you're bringing the mind, the heart, the gut, your whole body
Whole
into
thing.
integration
Yes.
together. I'm going to take that one step
Okay.
further because I think this is really important to recognize that When we do this, when our heart filled and our mind filled and our body, our whole body is in harmony, we have that effect on others around us. Like, have you ever
Absolutely.
noticed when you walk into a room, like someone who's really calm, just has that meditative state, they can immediately relax you. You
Yes.
just feel it.
Yes.
So that's a cool thing. Society, as us sitting here, we're communicating heart to heart in some aspect, right?
Yes.
And the more we integrate our aspects of ourselves into that meditative state, the more we affect those around us in that same way.
Yeah, I had a couple weeks ago, I had a patient that was telling me how frustrated she was about some challenges that she was seeing in her daughter's relationship with partner,
Mm.
and how it was just and she wouldn't listen, and this frustration of how can I communicate this danger, and that was affecting her state, her current state. The following week, when she came in, she said, I've had time to reflect. And she said, I do want to still have an impact and a change on that relationship. So, what I've decided to do is I'm changing me. I'm going to
Excellent.
work on me
Beautiful.
because if I change me, it will have a positive effect on my daughter and potentially on that relationship. And I thought, wow, okay, what a beautiful role model. Thank you for reminding me, for me, that I need to do that too. So it's part of that internal external pollution thing. Okay, if everything's messy around you, you got control over you. You can change your internal state and be present, be in the now, and that just makes all the difference. And it does affect our health, because if our internal state is all stressed out and we've got a lot of anxiousness and anger and resentment and criticalness and all these different emotions that we're harboring inside of us, it's going to affect
So
our
true.
health. So what's the statistic now, Doc, about stress affects how many, what percentage of our health, how many disorders, diseases, symptoms? I hear different numbers.
It's a
People,
hundred
yeah,
percent.
it's like
It's a
somewhere
hundred
between
percent.
90 and
There's
100.
no, it's 100%. Stress will make it will make every disease process worse. It will. It's not going to generally make you, there's different kinds of stress. So
Absolutely.
we can go into some deeper thoughts there, but I think what I get out of all of this, and I want to focus on what you just said
Mm,
just really briefly. That is a core concept, I think, to changing the world.
yes.
I just want to point that out, what he just said there. And I think everyone should listen to that. It begins with you, it begins with us, ourself, and our change we make on the world. So at this point, I think it's a good idea to wrap up with
Yeah.
some basic practical things, discussing maybe how we can meditate, some ways that you would walk people through those steps.
Yes, I think that this is a beautiful way to end it. And we're giving ourselves advice, right? Because we all
Right.
know we can do better
Yeah.
as well. The first thing I would say is start small, right? So start small, meaning I'm going to carve out 2 to 3 minutes in my day, every day, for mindfulness. And okay, when am I going to do that? I'm riding the bus and I'm just sitting there. So, like times that we wait. Now, how many times do you go to a stop sign, stoplight, whatever, and you look across to the next car? And what do people do in that wait time? They get their phone out and they shoot
Right.
off a quick
It's true.
message, right? So we don't want to waste our wait time. So we're going to fill it, but that's filling it with some more clutter, in my opinion. But we could be using some of those bigger, and you don't want to close your eyes while you're sitting there and the traffic light
Don't light
changes.
it incense.
We're not saying that, but there's a lot of pockets of time during the day. And can I just find one of those pockets of time when I'm waiting, doing nothing productive, that I'm now going to shift and make that 2 to 3 minutes of some kind of mindfulness activity? And maybe I'm going to breathe in my nose, out my mouth, close my eyes, just really relax. Maybe I'm going to visualize my happy place. I don't know, the beach, the mountain, whatever you come up with, but just paying attention. Then what's going on inside of me? What emotions am I feeling inside of me? And you can even put your hands in different places on your body, but just stop the external focus, bring it inside, but just start small, 2 to 3 minutes every day. And I'm okay, here's a time I can do that. Maybe it's when you're shaving, I don't know. but I think everyone could pick one time to just add 2 to 3 minutes. That's a simple first step.
I love that.
All right,
Yeah.
what do you got?
So I think first off, I think a little bit of something is better than a lot of it and nothing. You need to do it. You got to start practicing mindfulness in those moments. I think that's such good advice. My personal approach, like one of the things that I do, and I think this is helpful for in really anyone, find something in your life that makes you calm, that something around you that makes you calm. Me personally, I love the sound of water.
Okay.
And so I like to turn on the shower, have a little fountain or something where I can go into a calm state. And when I know my mind is calm, now I can meditate really well.
Right,
And that
right.
is a trick. A lot of people don't know this. Like some people will use candles, they'll light a candle, and that looking at the candle will put their mind in that calm state.
Yes.
So there's a lot of ways to do this, but the general rule is put your mind in a calm state with something external if you can first, then go internal with the deep breathing. And when you breathe in, take a deep breath in and fill your belly.
Fill it up.
Fill your belly, just like you see a baby when they breathe, you watch their tummy move. That's natural for them. They know when they're breathing that they're taking a full breath in. And that's the same thing with us. We get into this state where we only breathe with our chest and we forget that we can
Right.
fill our lungs. So fill your lungs to the tip and let out all that air and start getting used to that. You might get a little lightheaded at first. That's very normal, but take your deep breaths in and deep breaths out. And I think that's a good place to start. Put yourself in that state. You could count. You could think of one of my favorite meditations is japa meditation,
Okay.
where you take a word that you want to
Right.
implement in your life, like maybe peace or love. And what you do is you think of the letter in your mind, you visualize it as you breathe in. And as you breathe out, you see the letter come out in front of you
Yes.
and you see the full word. And then you do that breath in again. Now you see the second letter and you breathe out. And then you
Mm,
look at the space between the letters
there we go.
and you take a deep breath in and you go into that space between. And as you breathe out, you
All
have
right.
that word come up again. You go through all the letters. So it's like
Yeah.
a way to simplify it. But anyway, that's
I
one
love
way.
that. I would suggest don't try to do it all alone.
Mhm.
In other words, if I'm brand new to meditation, I don't know really anything about it. Like there are so many guided meditations
That's
that you
true
can do,
nowadays.
or even better, find a community. I know where we are right now in the studio, I could throw a rock and there is a
Right across the,
place
yeah.
right across the parking lot where there is a meditation center. And that's a place where you can go where you're not doing it alone. And if you get in a space where you're doing it with others, it's going to help you, guide you, pull you into that same flow. I guess two other things that I would say is humor is huge, because I
Sure.
think we take ourselves too seriously. And when we can, especially laugh at ourselves, that just makes everything lighter. But one last thing that I think like this is a big thing that have started to recommend to some of my patients that come in. And when I check their central nervous system, if they are really stuck in the gas pedal, the sympathetic fight, flight, freeze, and they're worrying and their brain's making all these predictions. And it's time to meditate. And they say, I try, but I can't. My brain is just thinking, I can't shut it off. What am I supposed to do? So sometimes a person can get stuck in that mode,
That's
and
true.
that will be a huge limitation. Okay, we got to pull out of that. And there's several ways we can do that. Definitely some body work. There's lots of different kinds of body work that we can use that will help with that. A big one. Here's a big one. This is a huge tip, and it didn't come from me. I heard it from some others. But it's that same concept with the brain waves that we were talking about. So if I get on my phone and I record a couple of minutes of my own voice saying some positive affirmations.
Mhm.
And then I listen to it several times a day, every day for a month. And especially the most powerful time is right when it's time to go to sleep. Right when I'm closing my eyes and I'm about to drop off, I've got that recording going in my ear. And I've had several people come back and say at like week 2, week 3, something just shifted. And it's like hearing your own voice because the brain doesn't know. if that's your internal voice, it's just your voice. And so it's you're saying that over and over. So that must be the state of things. So
Hmm.
you can actually help make changes doing that. So there's a whole myriad of things that we can do. But if you're stuck in that mode, you might need a little assistance to get out of that mode. And there's, like I said, lots and lots of resources for that. But that will block your meditation. But I encourage take yourself not so seriously. Like this is part of the human condition. It's part of the times that we live in. We don't have to be victims of it. We need to be working to improve our health. And the mindfulness and meditation things that we've been talking about, these concepts, they absolutely have positive health markers. They're going to increase our longevity, boost our immune system. We're just going to be happier people
Yes.
and we're going to enjoy our life. And life is so precious and so valuable, and there's no time to waste. So we want to be present, we want to start small, and we want to get in there and make these changes.
We should do a full episode on the power of humor. I feel like that
Oh
would just be
yeah, yeah,
a
that would be a
great
natural.
episode.
I would
I
love
would
that
love
one.
it. I think that covers our topic today. I think that covers everything. Remember, if you have any like further questions or want to dive into more material, you can check out our individual bios and our websites that we have links to. But thank you for joining us today. I'm Dr. Michael Hummel,
Dr. Luke,
and yeah, thanks for joining us. Take care.
take care.